Thank you very much, Antoine.
Pleasure.
So not forgetting to focus the value on the patient. According to the American Cancer Society, 1 out of 41 men will die of prostate cancer. And early diagnostics is key to save lives. Combining novel biomarkers with AI will allow our next speaker, or the next company, miRScientific, to achieve accurate measurements for the risk profile of prostate cancer patients for better treatment. I told you that this evening was kind of international. We're happy to have Sam Salman directly from the US. Sam, the digital floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to quickly convey my appreciation and admiration for such a wonderful conference and for the organizers to pull off such a wonderful event. So I wish I could be there with you in person. It's such a beautiful city. So unfortunately, I'm on a remote basis, but looking forward to engaging. Very quickly, we are a part of a bigger company called Humanity and Innovation. And the purpose of Human is to basically tackle and solve what we term as intractable challenges of humanity. These are the challenges that, despite major investment from pharma companies, from R&D of governments and researchers and food companies, have yet to be resolved. So this is our purpose. Next slide, please. And we're organized to approach innovation in a comprehensively different way. The purpose of Human is to be able to remobilize the way that education, innovation, and scientific thinking is labeled and is analyzed, to be able to identify complex patterns in nature that can be applied across different domains of nature and life, for example, human health, animal health, plant health, etc., and at different scales. So this is the foundation of our understanding and the platform through which we were able to create miRScientific, which, as Pierre-Jean mentioned, is focused initially on prostate cancer. Next slide, please. So as part of our comprehensive platforms around the world, we have our own in-house scientific and data science teams, as well as leading collaborations with research organizations known for their specialization in specific areas of interest to us. And these apply to human health and, of course, agriculture and other areas of food production and nutrition security. Next slide, please. And we're, of course, fundamentally focused as the main commercial mission of our company to be able to create solutions that have a measurable impact on humanity. And we're very much inspired and do, in fact, track against the SDG goals of the United Nations. So we're very much an impact-focused organization. Next slide, please. And this is our global organization. We're organized from the point of view of addressing these challenges in platforms. Each of these platforms produces ventures that are spun out. And one of them is miRScientific, which will be the focal point of our discussions today. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next slide, please. So miRScientific, at its core, is a discovery platform that uses advanced tools, including biostatistics and molecular science, to be able to associate patterns of expressions of non-coding RNAs to not only the presence of disease, but to be able to assess the aggressiveness on the disease, and to do that in what we call a continuum. So each value that is measured actually has a significance, including for being able to identify the presence or absence of different types of diseases and being able to look to see whether they change, they come back, they remain stable, and so forth. Being able to manage disease on a continuum is a fundamental paradigm that can transform the way we manage patients. So as you can see, we're focused on prostate cancer, which we'll describe in a moment, but the same platform and same technologies are being used, and we have early work in bladder, kidney, and other diseases, which we believe comprehensively we can help bring about in terms of transformation and patient impact, major positive developments. Next slide, please. So as our host mentioned, prostate cancer is a disease that affects a significant portion of humanity. Every man, as they age, will have a more significant risk of developing prostate cancer. In fact, most men die with prostate cancer and not of prostate cancer. In the United States, around 1 in 8 men have a prostate cancer diagnosis. And this, of course, means that the prevalence of this disease is amongst the highest of any cancer that is related to, in this case, men. And of course, it also means that there is a significant need to be able to screen populations. The main stark difference between having a high prevalence rate of prostate cancer and the death incidence and the burden on humanity of prostate cancer with the form of treatments and death is that if prostate cancer is identified early, which means that it's still localized to the prostate, the probability of being able to live a useful and productive life measured over a 5-year survival rate is almost 100%. If, however, the prostate cancer is identified late, the survivability goes to around 30%. So it's essential for one of the world's most prevalent cancers. It's the second most common cancer in men in the world, and one of the most deadly diseases, if not caught early, that a comprehensive solution approach is developed. Next slide, please. Currently, the standard of care is based on a mix of tools that use a prostate-specific antigen test, commonly known as a PSA test. And a PSA is a prostate-specific, not prostate cancer-specific test, and it can only measure the suspicion of disease. The test is 44 years old, so you can just imagine in our daily experience how few tools we use that are 44 years old. But that is the state of the art. And when the PSA test is viewed to be above a certain cutoff, and this cutoff varies in different places and has been changed over time, the patient is sent forward to a biopsy in the United States. In Europe and in Switzerland, they often have an MRI first, but also require a biopsy as a follow-up. A biopsy is very invasive, and it has a fundamental limitation as to its accuracy, because if you can imagine a prostate in a man being the size of a walnut, a prostate biopsy measures a small amount of the volume of the total prostate. Therefore, it has a very well-known false negative rate. It also has a likelihood to have morbidity risks, which means side effects from the procedure that leads to dangers such as incontinence, impotence, bleeding, infection, and in fact, death. What we have developed for prostate cancer is an entirely urine-based test. Only a single urine specimen passed daily by a man very regularly is required. It is accurate, it is completely non-invasive, it's standalone, meaning no other test is required for it to work, and it is approved because we're clinically and regulatorily certified to commercialize the test, and it is efficient, and as we will see, it is highly scalable. Next slide, please. So what we have approached as our differentiation to the market is a comprehensive way to be able to provide a patient through their doctor the tool of being able to not only determine the presence of disease, but to be able to classify the disease in a risk group that enables the system, including providers such as urologists, oncologists, and even primary care providers, to have actionable information to manage the patient in as much as possible completely without unnecessary invasive procedures. So as you can see, our platform here from one urine test is able to analyze the specimen to be able to produce an assessment that is able to differentiate between no cancer, what we term as low risk disease, and that is that most men will have prostate cancer of some type as they grow older. However, that disease is stable and is unlikely to change. It only needs to be monitored. So the ability to be able to differentiate between a cancer that needs to be monitored entirely without any invasive procedures is a very important way to manage the patient population and health outcomes. At the same time, it is critical to immediately identify patients that have what we call an elevated risk of prostate cancer. And this is a risk of it being aggressive, meaning that it's likely to move out of the prostate and infiltrate surrounding tissues and become a metastatic disease. This is the source of death for most patients on the disease. And we have also been able to identify a molecularly different profile for what we call moderate risk. In this patient population, they need to be most likely monitored more regularly. Of course, this is at the discretion of their doctor. and they have a much lower chance of developing aggressive disease than those who are elevated. So we're able to do this. And as you can see on the right, our accuracy in our view is industry leading. And again, this is only from a urine test. So it's outperforming the current standard of care, which includes a biopsy. So we're able to very accurately identify patients who have no evidence. We're very accurately able to identify patients who have a difference between low-risk disease and other types of disease, and our false negative rate is less than 2%. So these are all indications of an extremely accurate and robust test. Next slide, please. The patient platform that we offer enables the workflow for a patient to be extremely efficient. So all the patient has to do is provide a urine specimen, which could be sent to their home, or it could even be sent to a place of work. They send this specimen back to our laboratories. And because we're using a material that's called non-coding RNAs, small non-coding RNAs, it is quite stable and can be shipped across international boundaries, including from Europe and Japan and other areas to our labs. And our lab is located in the United States, in New Jersey. And from there, we begin the molecular analysis, leading up to a patient report that, as described, provides one of those 4 classifications, each of which is actionable and enables the patient to understand exactly what they need to do best and helps their patient, their doctor, the provider, to be able to navigate what otherwise would be a very belabored and often very invasive procedure to get to a similar level of understanding. Though in our case, we actually outperform the features of the standard of care, in particular with biopsy. Next slide, please. As we mentioned, we are in a fortunate position that since forming the company in 2015, conducting the different studies necessary, and going through all of the regulatory requirements, we have what is called a CLIA certification in the United States. In the United States, a lab that performs its own test is regulated by an entity called CMS, that is a national regulator for laboratory developed tests. And we have this certification that applies to currently 45 states of the United States and international markets outside of the United States. A few states of the United States ask for additional information, and we're on track in our view to be able to complete those additional requirements for almost all of those states before the end of this year, and the remaining state, which happens to be the state of New York, by the middle of next year. It requires an additional procedure. Next slide, please. In addition to that, we were very fortunate to receive what is called a breakthrough status with the FDA in the United States. The FDA designation is for tests that meet a certain threshold and can then be made available on a more broad basis, including being offered as a kit to third-party labs to run. So it is a strategic decision on our part to actually apply for an FDA certification as well, though it is not required for being able to be commercial in the United States. We plan on doing this next year, and this enables us to take advantage of our already received FDA breakthrough designation, which effectively is a designation for tests that the FDA in the United States effectively views as having a novel scientific approach to solving an unmet need. Next slide, please. We have received several different types of accolades and recognition, including, as we mentioned, publications, several different presentations and national and international conferences. We have also won the Medical Device Innovation Award of the Year through a very well-regarded conference in the United States. And we have presented and will continue to present at global conferences that differentiate our platform further. In addition to that, of course, we acknowledge again the breakthrough status designation, which we received from the FDA as a major differentiator of our platform. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to connecting.
Thank you.